He chuckled while the fire crawled up the edge of my suit, the silk twisting like a dying leaf in the wind. Now you can't marry my daughter, he sneered, wearing the smug expression of someone who just stomped on something fragile and small. I didn't move. I stared straight into his eyes and replied, "You really don't understand what you've just done." His grin faded. Let's go back 6 years. Back then, I was a ghost with a title, freelance consultant. Numbers, damage control, crisis strategy. People brought me in when everything was already collapsing. I didn't just stop the fire. I made it look like there was never any smoke. I lived in shadows, working in silence, efficient and invisible. And then I met Elena. She wasn't just a woman, she was clarity. Sharp, luminous, and unapologetically strong. She didn't just see me. She pulled me out from the place I'd gotten too comfortable hiding in. For the first time, I left behind the mess, the broken companies, the cold calculations, and started building something real. A future. A life with her. Her father, Victor, never approved. From day one, he looked at me and saw a man he couldn't size up. Too reserved, too calm. Not someone he could bend to his will. His world was polished on the outside. Old wealth, political circles, charm. But underneath it reeked. Bribes, threats, dirty deals hidden behind every sip of bourbon. I kept my distance. Not because I feared him, but because I respected Elena. But respect, I've learned, is dangerous when it only flows one way. On our wedding day, I sensed something was coming. At the rehearsal dinner, his smile had been too calculated, his manner too measured. That's when I realized he wasn't worried, because he had a move to play. But I was wrong. I had a plan. He only had a tantrum. Right before the ceremony, he caught me in a side room. My suit, custom-made and perfectly pressed, was hanging untouched. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a lighter, flicked it on, and held it under the hem. I didn't stop him. I watched him destroy $1,000 suit like a spoiled teenager trying to ruin Christmas. Watched him grin, thinking this fire would somehow erase the love we'd built. And I watched the exact moment he realized I wasn't the one crumbling. When I told him he didn't understand what he'd done, it wasn't a threat. It was a fact. 3 months earlier, I'd started laying the groundwork. Quietly, methodically. He had no idea I still had allies, that people still owed me favors. He didn't know I had traced the offshore accounts he'd buried so deep he thought they were invisible. Didn't know I had someone on the ethics board flagging 3 shady contracts linked to dummy corporations he controlled. Didn't realize that Elena had begun to suspect things on her own. And all I did was gently guide her toward the truth. She wasn't naive. She was loyal. And loyalty doesn't die in betrayal. It dies when it's confronted with honesty. After the fire, I asked the coordinator to pause the ceremony, just a brief delay. I walked out, got the spare suit from the trunk. Always keep one, just in case, and returned to the hall with steady steps. Elena was waiting. Her father stood near the aisle, hoping to watch everything crash. But there was no crash. Just vows. Just a wedding. We said I do. And he stood there like a man watching his empire go up in smoke, not knowing which exit led out. 2 days later, the audit began. His name was everywhere. Within weeks, 3 board members had turned state witness. The indictments came quickly, precisely. Like clockwork. In court, Victor's face was flushed, streaked with shame and disbelief. He never looked at me. Not once. Because by then, I didn't matter anymore. Elena had taken the lead. She filed the complaint. She spoke with the journalist. She was the voice they couldn't silence. I just pointed her to the truth. She chose to set it all ablaze. From jail, he called me once. His voice was hoarse, shaking. "I know you did this," he spat. I replied calmly, "No. You did this." And hung up. Elena and I don't speak of it much now. She needed time. After everything, she moved back into her mother's old place. Needed space to rebuild in her own quiet, strong way. I visit sometimes. We sit on the porch. Drink coffee. Often in silence. But sometimes silence is louder than any conversation. Sometimes it says more than the vows ever could. I didn't marry her because she needed someone to shield her. I married her because she never needed shielding, only the truth. Victor crosses my mind now and then. The lighter, that smug look, the flames licking silk. He thought he was wrecking a ceremony. He didn't know he was lighting the fuse that would blow apart his carefully curated life. That's the funny thing about fire. You never really get to choose who it takes with it. Me? I always keep a backup suit.